We're here with PGA caddy Jeff Hamley, a caddy on the PGA Tour for Andrew Novak, who went from the Corn Ferry Tour to the PGA Tour in 2022, has one top 10 finish so far this season on the PGA Tour, and he finished 5 under last weekend at the Mexico Open. And Jeff Hamley has been his caddy since the Corn Ferry Tour, an Erie, PA native, and now lives in Harrisburg, PA. And not recently, but not too long ago, you left your job in corporate offices at Aerotech to go become a caddy on the PGA Tour. So that's that's already an incredible transition to go from one profession to another. But how did this all come together?
Yeah, thanks, Luke. So I grew up in Erie and played a lot of golf as a kid, and golf was a big sport with my parents and I. It really brought us together. Neither of us are that good, but just enjoyed the game thoroughly. What the game means, the competition, the integrity, the camaraderie, and always wanted to. I caddied as a kid for one of my buddies who was a really good junior and really enjoyed it and wanted to pursue it. So when I was working in the corporate world, which, out of college at Slippery Rock, I, didn't have many corporate offers, but took one here in Central PA and, worked there for 11 years. And I just always knew in the back of my mind that I wanted to pursue caddying professionally. Just needed the time to be right, if you will. But more importantly, I needed to just make that connection, to make that leap. And after about 10 years in the corporate world, my wife was very supportive, and I met a friend from the Dillsburg area who was a caddy out here named Colton Heisey, and he told me about a job for 1 week in the minor leagues currently called the Corn Ferry Tour, formerly known as the Web.com Tour. And he said if I could get to the Bahamas in 24 hours, I could have a 1 week gig caddying for a new pro named Danny Walker. So I said, yeah, I'll be there. I will book the next flight out of town. I'll take a week off of work, and I'm not missing this opportunity. And the stars kind of aligned. And when I went down there and worked that week, we made the cut, maybe finished like 50th, something like that. But I absolutely fell in love with the job and said, I want to do this. So I came home, figured out a plan with my wife on how to make this work, and dove in with 2 feet. And that was 5 years ago. And it's been an unbelievable ride so far, and kind of a crazy decision when I look back at it. Probably not the most responsible. However, I knew I wanted to do this, and nothing in life is ever going to be just perfect timing. So I jumped when I did, and I thankfully I think I'm here today because of that leap of faith.
Yeah, I was very interested when I read up on your story. And Colton Heisey, who you mentioned was from the Dillsburg area, he's a graduate of Northern High School, just down the road from both you and me, here in Central Pennsylvania. And that was so interesting because it sounds like something that I would do. Like you got a shot. You got a shot as a broadcaster. You got to get to Bermuda. I'll be,
Yep.
a big shot like that. But what were your nerves like? I mean, you had to have been nervous, right?
Oh, certainly. I knew, so I was confident in a few things, right? And there's a few things that skills you have that transcend industry, being on time for work, being trustworthy, being hardworking, being loyal. Like, I knew if I could use those principles that, apply in any job you have, whether you're working at Burger King, or you're working at a car wash, or you deliver newspapers, or you're a doctor, right? There's certain values you're going to have. And if you work hard and you show up on time and you treat people great, you're going to have a great foundation in any job. So I knew if I had stuck to those principles that got me through through 11 years of success in the corporate world, I'd at least be, hey, ready to go. The golf side of it, yes, that's where I was nervous, but I had a good talk with my player, and I had tried to understand what he needs from me. That was one of the first conversations we had of how I can help him. And he knew I was my first week, so he didn't ask me to do too much. So I had it easy. I'll say that. But yeah, I was more so just trying to make sure I didn't screw up, and get in the way. And if and then I just learn a little bit each day. So Colton introduced me to a few other caddies that had been out there for a few years that I kind of looked at as mentors. And if I could just pick, one thing from each of the caddies, I really like the way this caddy handles this conversation. I like the way this caddy goes about his prep work, and pick a little bit from each person to build my own style. And that, that's a continually evolving thing as we get in the bigger events and we play with bigger players and bigger time caddies. I'm still learning as to how to do my job the best, but those nerves are definitely there, especially when there's fans involved. I'm just glad I'm not hitting the golf shots. Let me tell you that, because I love the fans. They're the best, but that's a whole nother level that these pros can handle that I'm not well equipped to. And I'm just glad I carry the bag, not hit the shots.
Yeah, amen to that. I was at the BMW Championship in last August, and I know that you probably had one of these moments too. It's like, whoa, the pros is a different game. It really is. I mean, just what they're able to do with their bag and the spin on the ball was what really got me. I mean, they can make that ball stop on a dime, which is crazy.
Yeah, they're the best. I mean, they're the best in the world, and that's especially if you were at the BMW. That's a premier event for the tour. I mean, it's the best of the best in the world, and that's if you gather any of the 100 best in the world in any profession, you're going to be impressed and amazed at what they can do, right? Yeah. So golf is no different, and these guys are just on a it's fascinating. I'm a fan. I mean, I'm a fan of the game myself, so I enjoy watching and being a part of it because it's I love being impressed by the best, and I'm just glad I get to work for one who I think is on his way to be one of the best in the world, and help him achieve that. I mean, it's been really neat to see Andrew's journey, kind of progress through the ranks, and to say helped. It's a little subjective in how a caddy helps. Some it's hard to put a finger on exactly how much a caddy does help. Some days it's probably more than others. But there's no way to really truly define it. But I sleep well at night knowing I'm giving Andrew everything I can, and hopefully, I think he sees that as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned something about the shot in Bermuda that you had to go kind of prove yourself that week as a caddy, and you were nervous, but you didn't want to screw up, and two, you wanted to learn every day. How did you feel at the end of that week when everything was done? You were on your way back to to the United States.
Yep.
And what was the feeling like? How did you feel?
I felt that I was going to call my boss that morning and give him my notice. I felt that I could absolutely do the job that I was going to be needed to do. I felt so confident in that, from being associated with the group of caddies I was with, to a few of the players I met and kind of saw how they acted. There were a few caddies that I was blown away by. I was so impressed by. I thought, man, these guys are really good. They know exactly what they're doing. But there were a couple other caddies that I thought that I heard complaining about the job. And I was sitting there one night, we're talking with Colton, and I was like, yeah, one of the caddies I was with was complaining that he got asked to read too many putts. And I was like, wait, like, I would think you should want to help your player read putts. You should want to be excited about it. And the other caddy just, and he's not, I think he was just filling in for a week as well. I learned later, was just not a full-time guy. But it's like, man, if what these guys are complaining about, I would do for free. So I knew, that old saying of like, if you love what you do, you'd work for free, or I forget how it goes, but that's the first time I felt that way, where I would do this job for free. And I basically did. The first 2 years, I lost money going to work the first 2 years. And, no minor league sport is going to be glamorous, right? The players for the Senators, our AA baseball team, will probably tell you the same thing. They are all there working hard to make it to the next level, right? Yeah. I don't think any single player's goal there is to stay a Senator for their career. And it's the same thing in minor league golf. Every pro and every caddy is putting the work in to get to the top level, the PGA Tour. And, and that the lack of pay is a motivator. It's a motivator to put extra hours in and to, push a little bit more to get to that next level, because the minor leagues are just, they make you get better or you make you get out. And that's, you have to do one or the other.
Right. Yeah. That's a really good way of putting it. Especially comparing it to the Harrisburg Senators, because that's what you look at. The Korn Ferry Tour is essentially the minor leagues of golf. And you mentioned that on the way back from your flight, from your shot in Bermuda, you felt like this is what you could do full time. So, what was the timeline like between that feeling and feeling like it was time to make a switch to actually making that switch? Like, when did you get to be back on the course?
Okay, so that was in January. I came home, and I knew the tour had a couple other weeks in Central America that I wasn't going to be able to go to, and then the tour restarted again in the United States in April. So I went to my wife, and we talked about it, and she actually wanted me to my wife's an accountant for Hershey. And so she's very, very process oriented, very, a lot of spreadsheets. She's really great at stuff. So she wanted to see a spreadsheet from me. So I, somewhat jokingly, but very serious too, I put together a presentation, and I put together a PowerPoint, and I presented it to her like a week later on just how I'm going to make this work, what I'm going to do, how the income will work, how our expenses will work. Just tried to put together a plan as to, how I can do this responsibly. So I pitched that to her the end of January. I think she just wanted to test me to see if I was serious about this. And I was as serious as, the sun coming up tomorrow. So I think she signed off on my PowerPoint, and I gave my boss a month notice the beginning of February, because the tour wasn't starting again until, actually it started again at the end of March. It was right coincidentally on my birthday. So yeah, I gave my boss a month notice in February, and then I started again March 18th, which is my birthday. So I started with so Colton helped me out again. Colton helped me out twice majorly. So when I put my notice in, I didn't have a job. I didn't have a caddy job, but I know in the minor leagues, there's always a player every week that needs a caddy. There's always at least one, because in the minor leagues, some of these guys don't have full-time caddies because their status, they don't know when they're going to play in events. So they might get into an event last minute, and they don't have a full-time caddy, so someone's usually scrambling. So I knew I had that up my sleeve. So if I just showed up at the next tournament, which happened to be outside New Orleans, I'd have a chance. So I was flying out of Baltimore and my wife took me down to the BWI airport this is on Sunday morning, and I had no job. And Baltimore's, about an hour and a half drive. So we happened to get to the exit for the departures, and I get a text from Colton, and it's a screenshot of a conversation with him and an Australian pro, Rian Gibson, who actually just won again on the Korn Ferry Tour, and he'll be coming back up to the PGA Tour, looks like, next year. And Rian said, hey, I'll give your caddy buddy, he's talking about me, I'll give him a job, 2 weeks, Matt, 1 week if he doesn't do okay. If he does well, I can give him 2 weeks because his full-time caddy was off until the third week. So I said, yeah, absolutely, I'll take it. That's amazing. So I took the job for Rian, and we worked together for 2 weeks, made both cuts. But that was basically, I didn't know this, but that was my interview for Andrew. I didn't know this, but Rian's a veteran player. He knows what he likes in caddies. He has a little bit of a reputation of, I would say not of being a stern is, I don't know if that's the exact right word, but he definitely knows what he likes. And I thank him tremendously for the help. Rian showed me a lot of specifics on expectations. And here's the thing. We get to the course the first day, Luke, and Rian says, hey, mate, are you ready to work in meters this week? And I said, meters? I didn't even think that was – I never really thought of that. Australian players play in meters, not yards. So I had to do all my math with an extra basically – a meter's about 10% more than a yard. So I did all my math adding about 10% more on top of, already learning how to be a caddy. It's my second week. And we did well. So, I'm math, simple math, addition, subtraction, multiplication, percentages, I would say is a strength of mine, which I use all day, every day in caddying. So I fortunately was able to get it done, but it's a heck of a welcome to the professional world when I had to work in meters for a tough Australian my second week. But little did I know, that impressed Andrew, and kind of gave me a little bit of credibility to basically interview for Andrew. So it all worked out. And then I started with Andrew at the beginning of April. That would have been 2019. And yeah, we've been together ever since.
Yeah, that's a really cool story. I wouldn't have even thought that would be a possibility to work in meters instead of yards. You never would have thought of something like that until it's right there.
Yeah. A lot of the U.S. is one of the only countries that isn't on the metric system. So a lot of we play golf's an international game, so there's a lot of great players from Asia. There's a lot of South Koreans. There's a lot of great players from South Africa, in Europe. So we're playing with people from all over the world every week. So we hear different numbers, we hear different languages. It's a very diverse game, and there's a little bit of we're always listening to kind of what other guys are talking about, just for our enjoyment. We have our own strategy every week, but it's neat to hear how other players from other countries go about the game, because golf can be played. The object's to get the ball in the hole, but there's a billion ways to do it.
Yeah. So about 2 years into caddying on the Korn Ferry / PGA Tour, correct me if I'm wrong, about 2 years in, right?
Yeah. What about 2 years in?
You've been on the PGA / Korn Ferry Tour. Yeah. What's been the coolest experience as a caddy so far?
So last year, Andrew and we qualified for the U.S. Open. And that would be, that was our first and only major so far, and that was up in Boston. And, the U.S. Open to me as a fan, that was always the top major. A lot of guys like the Masters, a lot of guys like the British, but the U.S. Open to me, that's our nation's championship. That to me, that's the top of the line. That's the Super Bowl in my eyes. And we qualified down in Dallas. which, there's basically qualifiers all over the country, and there's only about the top maybe 60 guys are exempt, and then the next 100 come from about 100 come from qualifying. So you really have, really anybody can win the U.S. Open, which is the neatest part of that tournament. There's qualifiers. There's a local qualifier in Harrisburg every year. And it's extremely difficult, right? I think I saw the numbers, about 9,000 people applied to play in the U.S. Open every year. And about 100 qualify. So your odds are slim, but just knowing that fact is out there is so great. And the second day we get out there Monday, and the Monday crowd felt like a Sunday at any other tournament. It was packed. The fans in Boston were unbelievable. They're so supportive. They're screaming, yelling. Respectfully, but having just every bleacher was filled on Monday, and that took me by surprise right away, because usually at a PGA Tour event, there's nobody there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and maybe they start creeping in Thursday, Friday, but the weekend is really where the fans come, and unless it's like the Waste Management or something, that's known for that fandom. And on Tuesday, Andrew tells me we have a practice round, which is our standard operating procedure, but we play with a bunch of different guys every week on Tuesday. We don't really have a set practice round. We go with our schedule, and if there happens to be a person to play with, great. Because in the PGA Tour, there's no tee times for practice rounds. You just walk up to the first tee, and if someone else is there and you want to play together, great. If you want to wait, you can let them go. Sometimes there's a long wait on the first tee. Sometimes there's nobody there. So it's really unique how you can get paired with all sorts of different players. But for the U.S. Open, they do schedule tee times just to make sure everyone, has appropriate, amount of practice time. And our Tuesday practice round was with Scotty Scheffler and Sam Burns, which Scotty is teetering around the number one player in the world. I think at that point he was. And Sam Burns, won 4 times on the PGA Tour last year. He's probably one of the most underappreciated golfers on tour right now. So the 2 of the biggest stars of the game, we got to play our practice round with. And the fans were, to me, it looked like a Tiger Woods crowd. They were, 10 deep on the fairways on every hole we played. Now, I know they weren't there to watch Novak and I, but just to be a part of that energy was something that it'll be hard to duplicate. Again, unless it's in a similar situation. So getting paired with those 2 for a practice round was in our Nations Open with those fans. I was pinching myself the whole day that I couldn't believe, we had made it there.
Yeah, that's a really cool experience. It reminds me, I believe it was the Masters of last year when Tiger Woods made his return. He was paired with Joaquin Niemann, who's sort of a young guy, won the Genesis Invitational, and I was just thinking the whole time, that's got to be a really amazing experience to be able to play alongside Tiger Woods at Augusta National. So a similar circumstance, playing at the country club up in Brookline, Massachusetts, and playing with those guys. That's amazing.
Yeah. Tiger's definitely believe it or not, he is everyone's favorite. He's my favorite player. He's Andrew's favorite player. Novak's a tour pro, and he still looks up to Tiger Woods. Tiger changed the game. I had one poster on my wall as a kid, and it was Tiger Woods in his red shirt doing the fist bump. And that's Tiger's. He was, he changed the game, and we're all thankful for it. And I can't wait. I would love, to be paired with him is the pinnacle of our profession. He's the best ever, and to be paired with the best ever would be, I know his career is, in the, I'm going to say the twilight of his career. I don't think he would argue with that. I still think he's capable of winning. I think when Phil won the PGA Championship at 50, which is an unbelievable experience, accomplishment for Phil to win 2 years ago at Kiowa. And, I think Tiger could do the same thing. So if there's anybody in the world that can come back from the stuff that he's dealing with it's Tiger Woods.
Yeah, you're right about that. You talked about changing the game. Well, there's nothing that's a stranger to golf, especially right now, than changes to the game. There's been a lot of them, two major ones, and I want to get into that a little bit. So, um, first question for you: in the PGA landscape, why do you think, based off of your personal views and what you've heard around you in the golf world, why there's so much tension between the Live Tour and the PGA Tour?
Yeah, that's a great question, Luke, and it certainly is a hot topic out there on tour still. Um, and there's two schools of thought that I've seen, and one is that it is direct competition. That is, the PGA Tour has a product that they produce, and it's a business they run. They have sponsors, they have players, they have fans, and there is a school of thought that people think that Live is direct competition trying to take their players, their sponsors, their fans. And in business, if you have competition, there's a way to work together, but I'm sure, you have to, there's going to be some tension there. I'm sure Coke and Pepsi, have a little bit of tension there. They work together. They both coexist, but there is tension because it's so new, Luke, that we don't know how it's going to play out. We don't know what other moves Liv is going to make that could, the word's probably threaten the livelihood of the PGA Tour. Now, on the other side of it, and this is probably more my personal opinion, is that there is a way to work together. I want to play in events with the best players in the world, right? And I want the fans to be able to see the best players in the world. So I would love for there to be a way where they could work together to incorporate Live players to the tour. It's a complicated problem. I don't know what the answer would be, but I don't think that there isn't. I wouldn't say there's hostility between the players that want to Live and the PGA Tour pros. A lot of those guys are friends. They grew up together. They live in similar communities, right? It's a business decision for the guys that want to Live. They made a decision, and they have certainly the right to do so. But there are consequences, and the PGA Tour has been pretty firm that the consequences are you're not eligible to play on the PGA Tour. So, I don't know how it's going to play out, Luke. I'm certainly curious. We all are, because Liv is doing something that's new and creative, and I have my own critiques on what they're doing, their format, and stuff. But at the end of the day, I hope there's a way we can work together and give the experience that the fans want and the sponsors want, and the game deserves, the best possible experience. So, not sure how it's going to play out, but we're certainly keeping an eye on it.
Was there ever any consideration by golfers that you've worked with, especially Andrew Novak, to go to the Live Tour?
There was not. We discussed it, behind closed doors. Hey, if Liv approaches, what's your strategy? Now there's agents involved with all these decisions, so they help kind of protect us, if you will, or insulate us from a lot of conversations. But no, Andrew and I talked about it, and we discussed loosely, if Liv made an unbelievable offer, what would that take to consider? And the reality of it is, and Andrew would tell you this too, Liv Golf wasn't going to offer Andrew Novak the same contract they offered Dustin Johnson, right? That's just not going to happen. Andrew's still a rookie on tour. So, yeah, the easy answer was no. We weren't considering it because we knew that we weren't going to get an offer that he felt wouldn't be worth it. Andrew wants to play for a long time. He loves the future of the PGA Tour. He, loves the idea of winning major championships and competing with the best. on tour. And his, and even if Liv did make an offer, they offer that financially, but they don't offer the legacy side. And Andrew is absolutely into, it wants to be known as one of the best in the world, and not just putting on an exhibition, which Liv is an exhibition, and that's great. They have a great, they have a great space that they can work in. Golf, I think, has room for that, but I'm glad Andrew came to that conclusion, because I feel the same way. I want to help him win majors and, and put our name on some trophies here at home and wherever the tour takes us.
Yeah, that's interesting that you said that he was interested in the legacy side, and I think that's really a commendable move and a commendable way to look at that, because, I mean, there's so many events on the PGA Tour that have such high value, and that was my next question. Do you believe that the Live Tour will create events that are so widely respected as much as events like the PGA Championship, the Masters, the US Open, and things like that?
I don't. With their current format, no. I don't think that's possible. Because they're throwing tons of money. They're throwing tons of money at each event, right? Millions and millions of dollars. The biggest purses around. Now, we happen to play in the Players' Championship this year, which is another. The Players' Championship is basically the biggest event of the year. That's a non-major. And unfortunately, we missed the cut. But the purse at the Players was similar to the Live purses. And money is important, but that's not going to outweigh the excitement, right? So Liv could make their events worth $100 million, and I don't think that would change their excitement, because they're already throwing out astronomical amounts of money, right? So the way they're currently set up, no, I think they would have to have a change. And the one thing that I just absolutely love about the PGA Tour and sport in general is the underdog story of like a breakthrough athlete. And you see it every year in the NFL, you see it on the PGA Tour, you see it in basketball, you see it in every sport, that somebody comes out of nowhere, or in the general public's eyes, right? They come out of an obscure situation and they captivate and win over fans, right? The Live Tour is the same 48 guys every week. No matter what, you're getting the same 48 guys. They go from city to city. It's an exhibition. There's no ability for somebody to come out of nowhere and have some heartwarming breakthrough story that, really, to me, is what sport is all about, right? Somebody coming out of nowhere. And whether that was Tom Brady, Tom Brady probably wouldn't have made Live, right? If we're going to have a little close connection, like Tom Brady was on the bench, right? And all of a sudden, Drew Bledsoe goes down. Tom Brady is now the best quarterback ever, right? That story was unbelievable. Captivated football fans for years. And on Live, you're just going to get the same guys. And now those guys are going to do great things, but they need to change their format if they want to really have any sort of magnitude of impact that the events you spoke of on the PGA Tour can have.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and your comparison with Tom Brady is great. I mean, you wouldn't think about something like that even being possible, and then he becomes the greatest quarterback of all time. And there's people on the PGA Tour. I mean, we saw it just this Masters with the amateur Sam Bennett. I mean, everybody knew he was a very good golfer, but who thought that he was going to play like that at Augusta National and the biggest stage in golf? Nobody, right? So,
right, and 98% of golf fans don't know who Stetson Bennett is, or Sam Bennett. Stetson Bennett, he's the quarterback. Sorry, yeah, Sam Bennett. And I only heard his name from the U.S. Amateur last year, but I'm not familiar with him. I don't know much about him, and I bet a lot of people are just, that's the most they know about him. So, I mean, what an awesome, neat, for the fan to watch an amateur competing against the best in the world. Like, I'm sure Sam had as many fans or more than the rest of the guys that weekend, because how cool is that to root for an amateur to win at that level, right? I mean, It's so rare. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's an unbelievable story. And that to me is what, the PGA Tour is all about. You earn everything you get on the tour. And that's one of the main reasons I love this field, is because if you put the work in and get the results, you get the reward. It's the best meritocracy that I know of. That in adversity, if you don't put the work in and don't get the results, then someone else is going to, and that keeps Andrew and I sharp, because we know that somebody's coming for our spot every week, every day, and we need to put the work in and do the best we can to not only be successful, but to keep our jobs. In all honesty, because golf is it's as competitive as you can be at that level. But that's what makes it so great. We're all competitive, adrenaline junkies, and to be able to go out there and compete with the best in the world, to me, there's nothing better than it.
Yeah, I can imagine. And a lot of people were talking about the Live Tour. Now more people are kind of focused on the USGA, the United States Golf Association, who came out recently with rules limiting distance of drives by PGA golfers by forcing the golfers to use different balls. Novak is 124th in the PGA Tour for driving distance, with a average still of 295 yards. Has there been any talk with not only your golfer but other golfers that you guys talk to regularly about these new rules?
Yeah, first of all, you didn't have to point out that we only are 125th on tour in driving distance. We already know. We know that we're, but isn't that crazy?
Still 124th in the whole world.
He hit what, 295? Is that what you said?
Yeah, which is incredible still.
So when you're playing at home and when you have a buddy that says, "Yeah, I hit it 300 yards," no, they don't. It's as simple as that. They may hit 300 yards because it hit the cart path and was downhill and the wind was howling, right? But it is the 125th best golfer on distance on tour doesn't hit it 300 yards, right? So it is insane how far you have to hit the golf ball, and how hard it is to hit it that far, right? So Andrew is, he's not the furthest. That is not his strength. Andrew is a short game whiz. He is chipping and putting is how he's going to be, known in this game, and how he's going to win golf tournaments. But so driving the ball, right? We need every yard we can possibly get. I think limiting the golf ball would be a massive choice in the wrong direction. I'm not a fan of it. I think that takes away from the ability for players to put extra work in themselves, that can say, hey, if I can hit it 320, then you deserve to hit it 320. And I don't know if Andrew agrees similarly, and every pro and caddy I've talked to does not like this decision. I promise you that. There may be a couple that do, and I've heard their arguments about it, how it's the same for everyone, but I don't think that's the answer. When I'm, and I think it comes down to the fans as well. I see every day, when we're out there, fans want the best, the best players in the world playing the best they can. Don't take away a driver hitting it as far as possible because you want to, the courses aren't long enough. There's other ways to do that. Fans want to see golfers hit the ball as far as they possibly can, right? I do. As a fan myself, I want to see people hit it as far as they can. I don't want to see them have any sort of limitations on it. And I'll go back to football as well. Like, I want to see, when I go to a game or watch it on TV, I want to see the players running the fastest they possibly can because they are the fastest. I don't want to see Tyreek Hill have to be weighted down because he's running too fast, right? The game's too fast. They're going to slow everyone down. I don't want to see that. I want to see players running as fast as they can and hitting as hard as they can and doing the best. Again, they've added pads. They've added some, I know better helmets. They're making it safer. And on the PGA Tour, I want to see guys hit the ball as far as they can and go from there. And trust me, if you look at the stats, Luke, it's a pretty clear example over the course of since the beginning of golf, that just because you hit it the furthest doesn't always necessarily mean you're going to win. Now, there are stats that show that how distance does help, but every week on tour, there's a guy that hits it shorter than the longer hitters and finishes better, right? So how is that happening? There's ways to make that, for you to overcome not hitting it the furthest, but to change the game and the equipment to limit the ability for these guys to do the best they can, I don't care for it. I think it's a misstep, and I don't think it's going to happen, actually, because the USGA is dictating that would be for the U.S. Open. That's really the only event they control. And if all of the players and all the manufacturers, aren't with it either, then something's going to come to a head. And I don't think the USGA is going to create their own golf ball for that tournament, because that's what would have to happen. So I know that would cost millions to do. I don't see it happening. So I'm thinking this point may fall into the wayside. But if it is, hey, we'll deal with it. We'll show up, we'll play, we'll do the best we can. But I don't think it's going to happen, and I certainly hope it doesn't.
That's very interesting. I'm glad that you brought up the logistics of it really happening for the U.S. Open. I wasn't necessarily aware of that, so I'm glad that you brought it up. My final question is not something I had on my sheet, but what's the best golf course in Central Pennsylvania that you've played?
Okay, I'll give you two. One. That's a little more private, and that would be Lancaster Country Club. Okay? And the ladies tour hosts the U.S. Open there every few years, and it's actually coming back to Lancaster next summer. So I would encourage everyone to get a ticket. And I was there myself when I was here about 10 years ago. The course is beautiful, and the ladies played some really darn good golf too. So Lancaster is just an unbelievable course. So beautiful, right there in the heart of Lancaster. And then I would say, my actual, in Central PA, one of the courses I love, it's right here in our backyard. And I don't think it gets enough respect. It's Colonial, off of Linglestown Road. It doesn't get a ton of respect. It's not a widely known course, but I love the layouts. And would encourage you to get out there and play. And whether it's, you're playing 9 holes or you're 18, hey, there's golf can offer a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So it's been a huge part of my life and my family. And I urge people to get out there and try. And, you don't have to play for a paycheck. You can just have fun, and you can make it what you want it.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks.